Back when I was fairly new to horses, when I was looking for a new horse, I wanted the biggest, the best, the most talented, most trained, most wonderful horse that I could find. I did not get that horse, but even if I had gotten that horse, little did I know that actually very likely would not have been the best horse for me at the time. And today we're going to talk about how to pick the right horse for you, because buying not the right horse for you can be a very expensive mistake. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Katrina if you're new here, and today we are talking about buying the right horse for your skill level. Picking the right horse can be a very daunting task, and at the same time, you can also very much so get swept up in the excitement of the fact that you're able to get a new horse. I have definitely been there and I know how it feels. But I am here to tell you that choosing the right horse for your skill level is very, very important for being able to enjoy that new horse and be able to do the things that you want to do with that horse. So we're going to break it down into 5 key areas that you want to consider when you are selecting a horse for your skill level. When you're choosing a horse, one of the first things that you want to consider is their age. It can be very, very tempting to buy some young, flashy horse. I know a lot of beginner horse people, they think they're going to buy a yearling or some younger horse and they're going to grow together. Or parents definitely make that mistake that, they're going to buy their child a young horse and they're going to grow together. And that's not a good move. Do not do that, please. For a less experienced rider, older horses are definitely where it's at. And I would say older is anywhere, like 10 to 20 years old. That is where you want to be. Those are the horses that you want to be looking at. Typically, their temperament is a bit on the calmer side. Typically, as you get older, the horse starts to calm down. That's not always the case, but it is a general rule. Older horses have more experience, so they might be less spooky in different environments if you plan on taking them there. And generally, again, this is a general rule of thumb, most older horses do have more training than a younger horse. And so with that additional training, the horse is actually able in a position to teach you as an inexperienced rider a thing or two about what it means to be a rider on a horse. I would say that experience that an older horse brings to the table is priceless. A lot of people will use the term bomb-proof, and it basically just means that the horse doesn't spook at things. I know when I was an inexperienced rider, I just did not have the skills as a rider to really handle a horse if it spooked. And I was also not confident. And so if a horse did spook, it would really shake me up and just was not a good situation. So having some sort of bomb-proof horse was really, really important for me as a new rider. So as a general rule, I would say if you are a younger or less experienced rider, I would definitely look for a horse that is older, again, in that 10 to 20-year-old range, and try to find horses that have had various experience. So they've been hauled, they've been competed on, all of that. They have that training, they have a calmer demeanor. Those are the kind of qualities that typically an older horse is going to bring to the table, and are the qualities that you as an inexperienced rider are going to really, really benefit from. There's going to be plenty of time down the road to start working with those young horses and having fun with them. But for right now, in this stage, if you're inexperienced, older horses are the way to go. Just sharing a bit of my personal experience. My first horse, we have no idea how old she was when we got her. She did not have papers. She was old. She was old. She was probably 20 when we got her. And so I got her when I was 10. And she was great. She was exactly what I needed. And then my next real notable horse, I think he was 18 when I started riding him. And it wasn't until I had been working with horses for quite a long time that I got Junior, and he was 6. And so I spent a lot of years on older horses that really built up my confidence, built up my riding experience, so that by the time Junior came into my life, I was very well prepared as a rider to enjoy the horse that Junior was at that time. The next thing that I want to talk about when it comes to selecting the right horse for you is temperament. So I just mentioned that generally horses kind of calm out as they get older. Not all horses do. Some horses are just insane regardless of how old they are. But generally as they get older, they do start to calm down and even out. But definitely you want to check the horse's temperament when you're selecting a horse. I like to look at their eyes. You can definitely tell some horses just have that very gentle, kind, quiet looking eye. And there's other horses that they just look intense, right? You might be able to see some white of their eye and stuff like that. I would suggest staying away from horses like that. We want a horse with a nice, calm, cool demeanor. That sort of temperament is really important for dealing with them on the ground and dealing with them under saddle. You don't want a horse that is excitable and potentially leaning towards dangerous. You could potentially get hurt with a horse like that, especially if you're inexperienced and don't really know how to watch for signs when a horse might do something silly. So definitely wanting something that is just even keel. Aside from looking at their eye, you just want to kind of see how a horse interacts with people and even like other horses. Are they, are they curious and kind of just, seem friendly? Or do they seem, again, a bit intense, maybe a bit skittish, and just maybe you just don't get the right vibe from them, if you know what, I know that sounds kind of weird, but you know what I mean, right? It's no different than when you meet a person for the first time. You just get this feeling from them about whether they're friendly, someone you could get along with, versus someone who's kind of standoffish and maybe someone that might be hard to bond with. You can get the same kind of vibe from horses, and definitely kind of feel that out with a horse when you're looking to buy something. The next one that I want to talk about is experience. So we already talked about this a bit when we talked about age, but we definitely, if you are an inexperienced rider, you want a horse with experience. We want a horse that's going to actually be able to teach you a thing or two. There's an expression, it's green on green makes black and blue, meaning that a green horse, green rider, you end up with bruises. Basically was what that's getting at. You definitely want a horse with experience, and experience in terms of a few different things. And I already mentioned this, so being hauled to various places, well trained, and potentially if you know that you want to go in a specific direction, like I want to do reining, I would really suggest buying like an older non-pro reining horse as opposed to just, I don't know, like an ex-cutter or just some random trail riding horse, right? I would encourage you to, if you're really certain that that's the sport that you want to do, I would try to find something that has that discipline specific experience, because again, they are going to teach you like, this is what it's like to ride a reining horse. And that's actually one of the mistakes I made when I got Junior. And in case Junior is watching this, I do not regret buying Junior at all. But he was an ex-cutter. And I remember being in his last owner's barn and he said, "What do you want to do with Junior?" And I said, "Barrel racing." I was buying a cutting horse for barrel racing. And look, that can work, right? That can work. But you tend to need a bit of experience in order to be able to do that, right? Like, I would have to teach this cutting horse how to do barrel racing, but I've never done barrel racing myself. A bit of a conflict. We figured it out, whatever. But make it easier on yourself. I try to make things hard on myself for some reason. If you know what discipline you want to go into, try to find a horse in that discipline. It's going to be a lot easier. They're going to teach you the ropes, which will save you a ton of time. Next, I just want to talk about size and the build of the horse that you're looking at. So there have been studies out there trying to assess rider size versus horse size. And common sense tells us that if you are a bigger person, you should probably be riding a bit of a bigger horse. I don't want a 250-pound man on a super, super small reining horse, right? It just, to me, that's a little cruel. So try to find, if you are, like I'm average person, most horses can handle me no problem. I've rode a variety of sized horses. Junior is 16 something. Diesel is just over the size of being a pony. So I've rode all sizes and they work fine for me. But if you are skewing to being a really small person or maybe a bigger person, you might want to consider that in your search. It's not going to be a make or break, I would say, but definitely take that into consideration. I think if you're a new rider, a moderately sized horse is probably a good idea. I think throwing yourself on a really, really big horse might be a little bit intimidating. And again, just considering if you are going into something very specific, some of the maybe jumpers or dressage horses might be a bit bigger. Those warm bloods tend to be on the bigger side. Whereas if you're riding cutters or reiners, those guys tend to be stout little quarter horses. So that's something to consider as well. And before we move on from here, I will just say, don't let size deter you. If you have in your mind that you don't want a large horse, but you've never been on a large horse, I would encourage you to try it. I was reluctant to have a horse as small as Diesel, but now that I'm on him, I love it. I love it so much. I always thought I was going to be like a big ranch quarter horse gelding girly. Diesel's pretty fun. I compare Junior to be as like my 110 dually versus Diesel as like my Ferrari sports car. It's a very different feel. So don't rule out things like that. Give it a try, And the last thing that I want to talk about today is maintenance. So I have talked about buying older horses with experience. Generally, those horses are going to have maintenance requirements. So when I was in search of a new horse before I bought Diesel, I was told you are not going to find a non-pro reining horse that does not require maintenance. Like, full stop, you're not. It just is kind of the nature of the beast, especially if a horse has been competed on a lot. It is very likely that they're going to require something, whether that be just body work, special shoeing, hock injections, something, right? They're going to need something. It's likely worth the trade-off. The horse is likely going to be a bit cheaper because they do require maintenance. They are a bit older, all of those things, but you're going to have to pay in terms of ongoing maintenance costs. Again, going back to that horse having experience and being able to teach you things, oftentimes it is worth that trade-off. There is a fine line though. Like if the horse is not 100% sound and it's like, okay, maybe he should just be retired. You might want to stay away from horses like that. But if the owner's very upfront with you, you do your due diligence in terms of getting a pre-purchase exam, so you know very clearly what maintenance is required by this horse, at least then you're in an educated spot where you're like, okay, this is what I'm up against. Am I willing to do that? But I would say for these older horses, for the amount of benefit that you can get out of them, putting in some time and money in terms of maintenance is usually worth it. Before we wrap up, I just want to go back to that whole idea of experience. I think people really underestimate how much an experienced horse can accelerate your learning curve. When I leased my riding instructor's horse, Lee, he came to me with years and years of showing and 4-H experience. My learning on that older experienced horse skyrocketed. My riding went through the roof. My confidence went through the roof. It was an amazing, amazing experience to have that horse in my life. I miss him dearly. He also required maintenance. At one point in his past, he had actually done the splits with his back legs on ice. He broke his hips. So he was not quite sound. We managed it with regular maintenance, as I said. But the amount that I got from that horse was invaluable. And I am so glad that I had him in my life. If you can find a horse like that in your life, like it's the best, the absolute best. So yeah, stay away from young horses, stay away from crazy horses, stay away from inexperienced horses, and you should be good to go. If you have any questions about finding the right horse, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Be sure to follow me everywhere at Strong in the Saddle. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. And until next time, remember, it's always a good day to ride.